My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm 59, a widow living in a serene corner of Oregon. For nearly 2 decades, I've managed the front office of a legal practice, raising my 2 children, Clara, my 32-year-old daughter, and Nathan, my 29-year-old son, ensuring they never faced the hardships I endured. Last Tuesday, an email altered my world. It came from Clara, no subject, just her name glowing in my inbox. I smiled, expecting a brief update or a warm note about her upcoming wedding. We discussed her plans a few weeks prior. I'd already provided $30,000 for the venue, photographer, and her favorite florist from her college days. But when I opened the email, my smile faded. Mom, it began no dear, just a stark label. Clara wrote that she, her fiancé James, and his family had finalized the guest list for their Napa Valley ceremony. After careful consideration, they decided I should watch the event via a virtual stream rather than attend in person. James's mother, she explained, insisted on a smaller, more intimate gathering. Her final line stung like a blade. If you want to be involved, here's the Zoom link we set up. It'll be like you're right there, haha. Haha. I stared at the screen, my coffee turning cold. My hands stayed steady, no tears came. Something inside me shifted, like a fault line quietly splitting. I replied with 4 words, "Fine, enjoy your day." No outburst, no plea, just a silent retreat. Those words, I knew, carried more weight than any argument. I didn't want a confrontation or tears, I sought clarity. Silence, I realized, could speak louder than words. I shut my laptop, sipped the cold coffee, and prepared for work as if it were any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. That day, I stopped believing my sacrifices held value for my daughter. That was when everything began to shift. Driving to the office, Oregon's early spring chill barely registered. My mind looped around one question. How did we end up here? For 18 years, I've worked at Harper and Stone Law, a steady but unglamorous job. Stability was my lifeline after my husband's sudden death when the kids were teens. I recall standing by our old dishwasher, bills scattered across the counter, calculating how to afford groceries and Clara's college deposit. I never hesitated to work extra hours, skip vacations, or miss birthdays. I told myself I'd have time for myself later. That time never came. Every dollar went to Clara and Nathan. When Clara switched majors twice, I covered the extra tuition. When she moved to Boston for a brief job, I paid for her apartment deposit and flights. At 27, after her second heartbreak, I flew out, comforted her, and brewed tea in an unfamiliar kitchen. When Nathan wanted to buy a home with his fiancée, I co-signed the loan and wrote a $10,000 check without a second thought. I never tallied my sacrifices. That's what mothers do, isn't it? But that email made me feel like a transaction, useful until my purpose expired. At the office, my boss, Thomas, paused by my desk. He's the kind who remembers anniversaries and your coffee order. He sensed something was wrong. "You look like you've had a shock," he said, placing a latte from the cafe downstairs on my desk. I wanted to tell him my daughter had excluded me from her wedding, but I just smiled and said I hadn't slept. He didn't pry. That small gesture, the coffee, the quiet, nearly broke me. Amid the chaos in my mind, it reminded me I still existed, even if only in the margins. At noon, my phone buzzed. Clara again, her name flashing like an unwelcome spotlight. Voicemails, texts. "Mom, please pick up. We need to talk. This isn't a game." I ignored them, sipping my latte, thinking maybe it was time to stop always being the one who answers. Maybe it was time to step out of a story where I wasn't even allowed on stage. That afternoon, I made a choice that would ripple through us all. No yelling, no begging, just action. After work, I didn't head home. I drove to Cascade Bank, a few streets from the office. Maria, the branch manager, had guided me through setting up savings accounts and adjusting my retirement plan. She always greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, shaking my hand. "What brings you in?" I set my bag down, my voice steady, almost too steady. "I need to stop a wire transfer," I said. She blinked. "The one for the Napa venue?" "Yes," I replied. She hesitated. "There might be a fee depending on timing. May I ask why?" "The situation's changed," I said, offering no more. Maria checked her screen. "You're in time. It hasn't gone through yet." She paused, looking at me. "Are you certain, Mrs. Hayes? $50,000 is a lot." I nodded. "I'm certain." That was the additional amount I'd planned to send, on top of the $30,000 already paid, $80,000 for a wedding I was barred from attending. I signed the forms and left without hesitation. By the time I got home, Clara had called 9 times, Nathan twice. One voicemail said, "Mom, please don't do this." I turned off my phone. In the kitchen, I opened a bottle of Merlot I'd saved for Christmas. Clara was supposed to visit but canceled last-minute work, she said. I poured a glass, stepped onto the porch, and sat as the sunlight faded. Birds sang, a neighbor's dog barked, and the world felt still. Memories flooded in. Birthdays I planned alone, holidays spent waiting for calls that never came, sacrifices no one noticed. Shoes I didn't buy, a car I drove for 14 years, trips I deferred. I thought of James's mother, who barely knew Clara yet held more sway than I did, the one who'd carried Clara through every storm. I thought of Clara's ha-ha, as if watching her wedding online was a jest. And I thought of myself, not as a mother or widow, but as a woman. What did I want? Peace, respect. A life not defined by being needed only when convenient. At 9 p.m., the doorbell rang. I considered ignoring it, but went to check. It was Nathan, still in his work clothes, tie loose, sleeves rolled up, clutching his phone like a lifeline. "Mom," he said, stepping inside before I could speak. "Why aren't you answering?" "Clara's losing it." I closed the door calmly. "Hello to you too," he paced, frustrated. "She says you're refusing to come to the wedding now that you're being unreasonable." I laughed softly. "Unreasonable. For not attending a wedding I was uninvited from." He shifted, uneasy. "James's parents are paying most of it, Mom. You know they're old school." I raised an eyebrow. "Old school? I paid $30,000 already. I was about to send $50,000 more. That's not tradition, that's a buyout." He froze. "Wait, another $50,000. "Was," I said, sipping my wine. "Not now." Nathan paled. "Mom, they're relying on that, the venue, the catering." "Not my concern anymore," I said evenly. His voice rose. "Of course it's your concern. She's your daughter." That was the moment something snapped inside me. "Get out of my house." "What?" "You heard me, Nathan, out." "Mom, no," I said, firm but quiet. "I've given everything, and I'm done being the villain in a story I built with love." He stood there, stunned, then left. The door's soft click felt louder than any slam. In my living room, heart racing, I realized I felt no guilt, only freedom. The next morning, I woke to 43 missed calls and frantic texts from Clara. They began with guilt. "Mom, we need to talk. Why are you doing this? It's immature." Then they shifted. "The venue called, the payment didn't go through. We'll lose everything by tomorrow. James's parents are livid. They say this shows they were right about you." At 3:24 a.m., she wrote, "I don't understand why you're ruining this for me." I smiled into my coffee. Of course she didn't understand. Clara had grown up with my sacrifices so seamless she never questioned their source, the security, the stability. She assumed I'd always be there, not this time. Later, an email arrived, subject, "Please don't destroy my wedding." I opened it without hope. "Mom," Clara wrote, "I know you're upset about the virtual invite, but this is too much. We lost the venue deposit, and if we don't pay the caterer by tonight Paris time, they're gone. James's parents are furious, saying you're unreasonable. Please, we can discuss you attending, but we need the money first." There it was. My presence was negotiable, contingent on my wallet. No apology, just a transaction. I closed the email and returned to work. At noon, Thomas stopped by. "Lunch, that new Italian spot opened." I nearly declined but nodded. "I'd like that." Over pasta, he shared stories of his grandkids, his eyes warm, genuine. He paused. "Pardon me, Eleanor, but you seem unburdened today." I surprised myself by telling him everything: Clara, the email, the wedding, the money, my decision. He didn't judge or fix. He just said, "Sometimes love means drawing a line, especially with those we've given the most to." He squeezed my hand briefly. "I think you did what was right." For the first time, I believed it too. More calls and texts came, but I didn't respond. My silence said enough. That evening, pulling into my driveway, I saw someone on my steps. As I approached, I recognized her. Lily, Clara's best friend since 5th grade, who'd spent countless nights at our house baking, laughing, sleeping over. I hadn't seen her in years. "Mrs. Hayes," she said softly, "I'm sorry for showing up like this." "It's okay," I said, unlocking the door. "Tea?" She followed me inside, her eyes tracing the familiar walls. I set the kettle on and waited. "Clara sent you?" I asked. She hesitated. "She's a wreck. They lost the venue, the florist backed out, and James's parents might cancel the wedding." I placed 2 mugs on the counter, saying nothing. "She's panicking," Lily continued. "She knows she was wrong but doesn't know how to fix it." "Is that why you're here, to fix it?" She shook her head. "I'm here to ask if there's anything she can say to change your mind." I paused. Would an apology erase the sting of being excluded, used, dismissed? I looked at Lily, still young, hopeful. "No," I said softly. "There isn't." Her shoulders fell. "Not even if she says sorry?" I handed her a mug. Words are cheap, Lily, especially when someone's desperate. People who love you don't wait until you're gone to value you. She nodded slowly. I understand, even if she doesn't. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hayes. You don't need to be, I said. We stood in quiet, two women bound by a hard truth. Love has boundaries. Sometimes, to be seen, you must walk away. Lily left soon after, thanking me with a gentle hug. I closed the door on a version of myself I'd outgrown. The wedding didn't happen as planned. They scrambled but couldn't afford a new venue. Per Nathan, they held a small backyard ceremony weeks later with a few relatives and James's parents. I wasn't invited, and this time I didn't care. Clara sent one more email, long and emotional, part apology, part defense. I read it once and archived it. I wasn't angry, just finished. There's a quiet peace in letting go, not in fury but in clarity. For the first time in years, I woke without wondering who needed me or bracing for guilt disguised as love. I made a rule. If my presence is negotiable, so is my effort. I go to work, read books, joined a ceramics class, and dine with friends who see me, not what I can offer. I learned a truth I wish I'd known sooner. You don't have to exhaust yourself to keep others comfortable. If this story touched you, share it, leave a comment, and consider subscribing. Sometimes the deepest love is the one you finally offer yourself.